In the quiet hum of a late afternoon, I found myself sitting at my usual corner table in the cafe, the scent of freshly brewed coffee mingling with the sweet notes of pastries. The world outside moved in a blur, but I was cocooned in my thoughts, lost in a haze of longing and uncertainty. My name is Alex, and I've always been the kind of person who feels things deeply, too deeply perhaps. As I stirred my coffee, watching the cream swirl into dark richness, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was missing in my life. My job at the local art gallery was fulfilling, yet it often left me yearning for more than just the beauty of paintings and sculptures. I craved connection, intimacy, something real, the kind of love that could fill the empty spaces inside me. That's when he walked in. Ethan, my neighbor's boyfriend. He had this magnetic presence that drew attention without him even trying. His tousled dark hair fell just above his striking blue eyes, which sparkled with mischief and warmth. As he entered the cafe, I caught a glimpse of his smile, a genuine curve of lips that seemed to light up the room. He was dressed casually in a fitted gray t-shirt and jeans that hugged his frame just right, effortlessly exuding a charm that made my heart race. That I had seen him before, always laughing with friends or sharing tender moments with my neighbor, Jenna. But today felt different. There was an intensity about him that piqued my curiosity. As he approached the counter to order, I couldn't help but notice how he interacted with the barista. Playful yet respectful, his laughter infectious. It was as if he carried a light within him that brightened everything around. But beneath that sparkle lay an undercurrent of tension I couldn't quite place. As he turned to leave with his drink in hand, our eyes met for a fleeting second. It felt electric, a jolt of recognition or understanding that left me breathless. There was something unspoken between us, a connection that defied explanation. Later that evening, as I sat on my balcony watching the sunset paint the sky in hues of orange and pink, I heard a soft knock on my door. My heart raced as I opened it to find Ethan standing there, looking slightly disheveled, but undeniably handsome. "Hey," he said, his voice low and inviting. "Can I come in? I need your help." My mind raced with possibilities as I stepped aside to let him enter. The air felt charged with anticipation. I could sense that whatever he needed would change everything between us. As he settled onto my couch, running a hand through his hair in frustration, I felt an overwhelming urge to reach out and comfort him. "I'm sorry to intrude," he began, his eyes searching mine for understanding. "But Jenna, she doesn't know about my past." His voice trembled slightly as he spoke, revealing layers of vulnerability beneath his confident exterior. That I leaned forward, intrigued and concerned. "What do you mean?" Ethan hesitated before revealing a secret that left me speechless. A hidden chapter of his life filled with pain and heartache that shaped who he was today. As he shared his story, detailing struggles with identity and acceptance, I felt an intense empathy wash over me. Each word seemed to draw us closer together, forging an unbreakable bond born from shared experiences and mutual understanding. The more he spoke about his fears and regrets, the more I realized how deeply we connected on an emotional level. My heart ached for him. I wanted to reach out and hold him close, to offer solace in a world that had been so unkind to him. As our conversation deepened into the night, laughter mingled with tears, moments of levity punctuated by profound revelations about love and loss. The tension between us grew palpable. Every glance lingered just a moment too long. Every brush of our hands sent shivers down my spine. That I knew then that this was more than just helping a neighbor's boyfriend. It was the beginning of something beautiful, yet terrifying. A journey into uncharted territories of love and vulnerability where both our hearts were at stake. That as we talked late into the night under the soft glow of my living room lamp, I felt hope blooming within me, a fragile yet powerful thing that promised new beginnings if only we dared to embrace it together. The following days unfolded like a delicate dance, each moment spent with Ethan weaving threads of connection that pulled us closer together. I found myself anticipating our encounters, each one a new chapter filled with laughter and shared secrets. But beneath the surface, a storm of emotions brewed within me. an internal conflict that threatened to unravel everything we were building. It was a Saturday afternoon when our first real connection happened. The sun hung high in the sky, casting warm rays that filtered through the trees lining our street. I had decided to take a stroll to clear my mind, hoping to shake off the lingering doubts about my feelings for Ethan. As I wandered through the neighborhood, I spotted him in his front yard, kneeling beside a small vegetable garden he had planted. "Hey there!" I called out, my voice tinged with surprise and delight. He looked up, and that familiar smile broke across his face, instantly brightening my mood. "Alex, come check this out." He gestured excitedly, his hands dirty from digging in the soil. That I approached cautiously, feeling a mix of admiration and nervousness as I took in the sight of him. He was so engrossed in his work that he didn't seem to notice how handsome he looked in that moment. His shirt slightly damp with sweat, hair tousled by the gentle breeze. "What are you growing?" I asked, squatting down beside him to get a better look at the tiny sprouts peeking through the earth. "Tomatoes and peppers," he replied enthusiastically. "I wanted to try my hand at gardening. It's therapeutic, you know." I nodded, genuinely intrigued by his passion. "I've never tried gardening before. I'm more of an indoor plant person." "Indoor plants can be just as rewarding," he said with a wink. "You should come over sometime and help me out. I could use an extra pair of hands." The invitation hung in the air like a promise, igniting a flutter of excitement within me. "I'd love that," I replied, my heart racing at the thought of spending more time with him. As we chatted about gardening techniques and our favorite vegetables, I felt a warmth spreading through me, a sense of belonging that had been absent for far too long. Yet, even as we laughed and shared stories, an undercurrent of tension lingered just beneath the surface. My mind raced with questions. What did this mean for us? Was it just friendship, or was there something deeper brewing between us? Just then, Jenna appeared at the front door, her voice cutting through our moment like a sudden gust of wind. "Ethan, are you coming inside? We have plans." His expression shifted slightly. An imperceptible flicker of annoyance crossed his features before he masked it with a smile. "Yeah, just a minute." As she walked back inside, I caught sight of Ethan's shoulders tense for just a moment before he relaxed again. It was subtle but telling. There was something unspoken between him and Jenna that made me uneasy. "Sorry about that," he said, turning back to me with an apologetic smile. "She can be a bit overbearing sometimes." "No worries," I replied, trying to dismiss the feeling gnawing at my gut. "Family comes first." "Yeah," he said quietly, his gaze drifting to the ground as if lost in thought. "But sometimes it feels like there's more I want to explore outside of what's expected." His words hung heavily in the air between us, resonating deeply within me. I could feel my heart racing as he spoke, my own fears echoing back at me. What if he wanted more? What if this connection we were building was destined to remain unfulfilled because of societal expectations or personal insecurities? Before I could respond, Jenna called out again from inside their house, her voice sharper this time. "Ethan, come on." He sighed softly, glancing back at me with an expression that mirrored my own uncertainty, a mixture of longing and frustration. "I guess I should go," he said reluctantly. "Yeah, of course," I replied, forcing a smile even as disappointment washed over me. As he stood up and brushed off his hands on his jeans, our eyes met once more, a lingering gaze filled with unspoken words and possibilities left hanging in the air between us. "I'll see you soon?" he asked hopefully. "Definitely," I replied, my heart swelling with hope despite the uncertainty clouding my mind. As Ethan walked away toward his house, I couldn't shake the feeling that our connection was both exhilarating and terrifying, a fragile thread woven into the fabric of our lives that could easily unravel under pressure. That evening found me restless in my apartment, replaying our conversation over and over in my mind. The thrill of our encounter mingled with anxiety as I grappled with my feelings for Ethan. Was this just infatuation or something more profound? And what would happen if Jenna found out? The societal pressures weighed heavily on me. Even though we lived in a progressive neighborhood where acceptance was more common than not, there were still whispers of disapproval that echoed through my mind like haunting ghosts. The fear of rejection loomed large. What if Ethan didn't feel the same way? What if pursuing this connection meant risking everything? As night fell and shadows crept into every corner of my apartment, I found solace in art, the one thing that had always anchored me amidst chaos. I picked up my sketch pad and began to draw. Each stroke became an expression of my tangled emotions, a release for all the longing and confusion swirling inside me. I end those quiet moments of creation. I began to envision Ethan not just as my neighbor's boyfriend, but as someone who could be so much more, a partner who understood the complexities of love and identity just as deeply as I did. But even as hope flickered within me like a candle against the dark, doubt lingered like an unwelcome guest. A reminder that love is never simple and often fraught with obstacles we must navigate carefully. The days that followed our first connection unfolded like a series of vibrant brushstrokes on a canvas, each moment with Ethan adding depth and color to my life. Our initial encounter in his garden had sparked something undeniable, and I found myself eagerly awaiting our next meetings, each one a new opportunity to explore the bond we were forming. It was a sunny Wednesday afternoon when I received a text from Ethan, inviting me over to help him with his garden. My heart raced at the thought of spending time with him, and I quickly agreed. As I walked over to his house, the air was filled with the sweet scent of blooming flowers and freshly cut grass. The sun warmed my skin, and I felt a sense of anticipation bubbling within me. When I arrived, Ethan was already outside, wearing a faded tank top that showcased his toned arms. He looked up as I approached, his face breaking into that infectious smile that made my heart flutter. "Hey, you made it," he exclaimed, wiping his hands on his shorts before stepping closer. "Wouldn't miss it for the world," I replied, trying to keep my voice steady despite the excitement coursing through me. That we spent the afternoon digging, planting, and laughing as we worked side by side. There was something magical about those moments. Each shared laugh felt like a thread weaving us closer together. As we dug into the soil, our hands brushed occasionally, sending jolts of electricity through me that made it hard to focus on anything else. "Careful there," Ethan teased as I accidentally flung dirt onto his arm. "You're going to ruin my masterpiece." "Masterpiece," I laughed, glancing at the modest garden filled with seedlings. "It looks more like a work in progress." He chuckled, shaking his head. "Hey, every masterpiece starts somewhere." As we continued working, we began to share more about ourselves, our dreams, fears, and the little quirks that made us who we were. I learned that Ethan had always been passionate about cooking. He loved experimenting with flavors and creating new recipes. In turn, I shared my love for art and how it served as an escape from the pressures of life. "Maybe you can teach me how to cook sometime," he suggested playfully as he wiped sweat from his brow. "Only if you promise to let me paint you while you do," I shot back with a grin. His laughter rang out like music in the air, filling me with warmth. "Deal, but only if you promise not to make me look too ridiculous." As the sun began to dip lower in the sky, casting golden hues across the garden, we took a break and sat on the steps of his porch. The world around us felt alive. The chirping of crickets filled the air as fireflies began to flicker in the growing dusk. "You know," Ethan said softly, breaking the comfortable silence between us, "I've really enjoyed spending time with you these past few days." My heart soared at his words, yet an undercurrent of fear crept in. What did this mean? Was he feeling what I was feeling? "Me too," I replied cautiously, trying to gauge his expression. He turned toward me, his gaze intense yet soft. "I feel like we have this connection. It's hard to explain." I swallowed hard, my pulse quickening at his admission. "Yeah, it is hard to explain," I agreed quietly. Just then, Jenna's voice called out from inside their house. "Ethan, dinner's ready." He sighed but smiled at me apologetically. "Guess that's my cue," he said reluctantly. "Want me to help?" I offered quickly. "No, you've done enough for today," he insisted playfully, but with an earnestness that made my heart flutter again. "But how about you come over tomorrow? We can cook together." The idea sent a thrill through me. Cooking together felt intimate and exciting, a chance to explore our connection further without any barriers. "I'd love that," I replied eagerly as I walked home that evening. My mind raced with thoughts of Ethan, the way he laughed, how he looked when he was passionate about something, and the warmth of his gaze when it lingered on mine just a moment longer than necessary. Yet beneath that excitement lay an ever-present fear. What if this connection led somewhere painful? What if pursuing it meant risking everything? The following day arrived too slowly for my liking. When evening finally came around, I found myself standing in front of Ethan's door once again, butterflies swirling in my stomach as I knocked softly. "Hey," he greeted me warmly as he opened the door, wearing an apron over a casual t-shirt that hugged him just right. The sight set my heart racing again. There was something undeniably charming about him in that moment. "Wow, you're really serious about this cooking thing," I joked lightly as I stepped inside. Ethan grinned and gestured toward the kitchen where ingredients were laid out on the counter. Fresh vegetables, herbs, and spices waiting for our culinary adventure. I figured we should start with something simple. Pasta primavera. "I can handle pasta," I assured him playfully as I washed my hands at the sink as we began chopping vegetables together. Carrots, bell peppers, zucchini. The atmosphere buzzed with excitement and laughter. We moved around each other easily in the kitchen. Our bodies brushed against one another frequently as we reached for ingredients or stirred pots on the stove. "Careful, that's too much garlic," Ethan exclaimed teasingly as I added a generous amount to our sauce. "More garlic means more flavor," I countered with mock seriousness. Our playful banter flowed effortlessly between us. Each laugh felt like another layer added to our growing connection. The sound of sizzling vegetables filled the air as we worked side by side, Ethan's laughter ringing out like music while mine joined in harmony. Once dinner was ready and plated beautifully on two dishes adorned with fresh basil leaves, we settled down at his dining table, a cozy nook filled with soft lighting and colorful artwork hanging on the walls. "This looks amazing," Ethan said appreciatively as he took a bite of his pasta primavera. "It tastes even better than it looks," I replied enthusiastically after sampling my own dish that we ate slowly, savoring each bite while sharing stories about our childhoods. How Ethan had grown up in a small town where everyone knew each other, and how he had always dreamed of moving somewhere vibrant like ours. "I love how alive this city feels," he said thoughtfully between bites. "It's like every corner has its own story waiting to be discovered." "I feel that too," I agreed wholeheartedly. "It's inspiring." As dinner progressed into dessert, homemade chocolate mousse, I couldn't help but notice how close we had become throughout our time together. Every glance lingered just long enough to send shivers down my spine. After finishing dessert, we moved back into the living room where soft music played in the background, a perfect backdrop for what felt like an intimate evening unfolding before us. Ethan leaned back against the couch cushions while I sat cross-legged on the floor nearby. There was an ease between us now, a comfort that allowed for deeper conversations without hesitation or fear. "What do you think love is?" Ethan asked suddenly, a question so profound it caught me off guard that I paused for a moment to gather my thoughts before responding carefully. "I think love is vulnerability," I said slowly. "It's opening yourself up completely to someone else, the good and the bad, and trusting them not to hurt you." He nodded thoughtfully before continuing softly. "And what if they do?" My heart sank slightly at his words. They echoed my own fears back at me. What if this beautiful connection led somewhere painful? But instead of retreating into doubt or hesitation, something deep within urged me forward, to embrace this moment fully without reservation. "Then you find strength within yourself," I replied quietly but firmly. "You learn from it and grow stronger." Ethan's gaze held mine steadily. There was something raw in that moment, a shared understanding that transcended words, a silent acknowledgement of our fears, yet also our hopes for what could be between us. Just then, our hands brushed against each other on the couch, a fleeting touch filled with electric tension that sent warmth flooding through me once more. My breath caught in my throat as our eyes locked. It felt like everything around us faded away. The music dimmed into silence while time itself seemed suspended in that single heartbeat where possibility hung heavy in the air between us. "Alex." Ethan started softly before hesitating, a flicker of uncertainty crossing his features. But before he could continue speaking or pull away completely from this moment suspended between us, The doorbell rang unexpectedly, shattering our fragile intimacy in two. Pieces like glass falling onto tile floors and jolting both of us back into reality with its harsh intrusion. Ugh! Who could that be? Ethan groaned in frustration as he stood up abruptly from the couch while running a hand through his hair exasperatedly before heading towards the door that I watched him go, my heart racing still from what had just transpired, and felt an ache deep within me, a longing for what could have been if only circumstances hadn't interrupted our moment so abruptly as Ethan opened the door, revealing Jenna standing there with her usual exuberance plastered across her face. I couldn't help but feel an overwhelming sense of disappointment wash over me like cold water dousing flames, extinguishing all traces of warmth left lingering moments ago. But even amidst distractions, I knew one thing for certain. Whatever this connection was becoming, it was worth exploring further despite any obstacles standing in our way. The days that followed our cooking adventure were a whirlwind of emotions, each moment with Ethan amplifying the connection we were building. Yet, despite the laughter and shared experiences, an undercurrent of tension lingered between us, a tension that felt like a taut string ready to snap at any moment. I could sense that we were on the brink of something significant, but the fear of crossing that boundary loomed large in my mind. That it was a Friday evening when everything changed. The sun had dipped below the horizon, leaving behind a canvas of deep blues and purples, and I found myself sitting on my balcony, lost in thought. My phone buzzed with a message from Ethan. "Want to come over for a movie night? Just us." My heart raced at the invitation. This was it, the opportunity one had been waiting for. When I arrived at his house, the familiar warmth of his smile greeted me at the door. "Hey, I've got popcorn and your favorite candy," he said, stepping aside to let me in. The cozy atmosphere enveloped me as I entered. A soft glow from lamps illuminated the living room, where blankets were strewn across the couch and a stack of movies lay waiting. "Perfect," I replied, trying to keep my voice steady despite the fluttering in my chest. And as we settled onto the couch, our bodies instinctively gravitated toward each other, creating a comfortable closeness that made my heart race. We started with a light-hearted comedy, laughter filling the room as we shared playful banter about the ridiculous plot twists and characters. But as the night wore on and the movie transitioned into something more serious, a romantic drama, the mood shifted. The film's themes of love and longing resonated deeply within me, stirring emotions I had kept carefully tucked away. I stole glances at Ethan throughout, noticing how his expressions mirrored my own, each flicker of vulnerability in his eyes igniting a fire within me. As the credits rolled and silence settled between us, I turned to him, my heart pounding in my chest. "That was intense," I said softly, searching his gaze for understanding. "Yeah," he replied quietly, his eyes locking onto mine with an intensity that sent shivers down my spine. "It really makes you think about what you want. What do you want?" The question slipped from my lips before I could stop myself, hanging in the air like a fragile promise. Ethan hesitated for a moment, his expression shifting as if he were weighing his words carefully. "I want to be honest with you," he finally said, his voice barely above a whisper. That my breath caught in my throat as anticipation surged through me. "Honest about what?" He took a deep breath, his gaze unwavering as he leaned closer. "About how I feel about you." The world around us faded into silence. It was just us, two souls standing on the precipice of something monumental. "Ethan," I began, but he cut me off gently. "I know this is complicated," he continued earnestly, "with Jenna and everything, but there's something about you that draws me in. It's like I can't help but feel this connection." My heart raced at his confession. Every word resonated within me like a melody I had longed to hear. "I feel it too," I admitted, vulnerability spilling from my lips before I could second-guess myself. His eyes softened at my admission, and for a moment, we simply stared at each other, two hearts laid bare beneath the weight of unspoken desires and fears. "I don't want to hurt anyone," he said quietly, his voice tinged with uncertainty. "But being around you feels so right." I reached out instinctively, placing my hand over his, a simple gesture that sent warmth coursing through both of us. "We can figure this out together," I assured him gently. Whatever this is, it's worth exploring. As if drawn by an invisible force, Ethan leaned closer until our faces were mere inches apart. My heart raced wildly as I caught sight of his lips, full and inviting, just begging to be kissed. "Are you sure?" he asked softly, searching my eyes for confirmation. "Yes." I breathed out, feeling every fiber of my being align with that single word. In an instant, our lips met, softly at first, a tentative brush that sent shockwaves through me. It was as if time stood still. Every worry melted away as our mouths moved together in perfect harmony. The kiss deepened slowly. Warmth enveloped us as passion ignited between our bodies. A fire that had been smoldering beneath the surface finally bursting into flames. Ethan's hands found their way to my waist as mine tangled in his hair. Every touch felt electric, a surge of energy coursing through us both as we lost ourselves in this moment of pure connection. It was everything I had dreamed of and more. A culmination of all our shared laughter and vulnerability leading to this single point in time where nothing else mattered but us. When we finally pulled apart, breathless and wide-eyed, reality crashed back in like a tidal wave, our breaths mingling in the charged air between us as we processed what had just happened. "Wow," Ethan murmured softly, still holding on to me as if afraid to let go. "Yeah," I replied breathlessly, still reeling from the intensity of it all. "I didn't expect that," he admitted with a nervous laugh. "Neither did I confessed honestly. But it felt right." His gaze held mine steadily. There was something profound in that moment, a shared understanding that whatever lay ahead would be worth facing together despite any challenges or complications that might arise. "I want to explore this," he said finally, determination lacing his words. "I want to see where this goes." My heart soared at his declaration, a mixture of joy and relief flooding through me as hope blossomed anew within my chest. "Me too," I replied with conviction. As we settled back onto the couch together, this time with fingers intertwined. We knew we had crossed an important threshold. Everything had changed between us irrevocably, but instead of fear or doubt clouding our minds, we embraced it wholeheartedly, the promise of new beginnings shimmering brightly ahead like stars illuminating an endless night sky. The days following that pivotal kiss with Ethan were a whirlwind of emotions, an intoxicating mix of joy and trepidation. I felt as if I had stepped into a new world, one filled with vibrant colors and possibilities, yet the shadows of uncertainty loomed just beyond the horizon. Our connection deepened quickly, and we began spending more time together. Late-night talks on my balcony, quiet dinners at his house, and stolen moments that felt like secrets shared between us. But with each passing day, the reality of our situation began to settle in like an unwelcome guest. I was acutely aware of Jenna's presence in Ethan's life, and the weight of our secret felt heavier than ever. One evening, as we lounged on my couch after a particularly intense movie marathon, I couldn't shake the feeling that we were living in a bubble, a beautiful, fragile bubble that could burst at any moment. Ethan lay beside me, his head resting on my shoulder, but I could feel the tension radiating from him as he stared blankly at the screen. "Ethan?" I asked softly, brushing my fingers through his hair. "What are you thinking about?" He sighed deeply, lifting his head to meet my gaze. "I don't want to hurt Jenna," he admitted, his voice filled with conflict. "She's been there for me through so much." "I understand," I replied cautiously. "But what about us? What we have feels real." He nodded slowly, but uncertainty clouded his eyes. "I know it does, but I can't just walk away from her without considering how it will affect her." The conversation hung heavy between us, a reminder of the complications that lay ahead. I wanted to shout that we deserved happiness too, that love shouldn't be confined by expectations or obligations, but fear held me back. What if pursuing this connection meant tearing apart someone else's happiness? As if sensing my turmoil, Ethan reached for my hand, intertwining our fingers in a gesture that felt both comforting and electric. "I need time to figure this out," he said gently. "I don't want to rush into anything. Take all the time you need," I replied, though inside I felt a pang of anxiety. What if time was all we had left before everything fell apart? Over the next few weeks, our relationship continued to blossom in secret. each stolen moment filled with passion and tenderness. Yet the weight of our situation pressed down on me like a heavy fog. Every laugh shared felt bittersweet as I grappled with my own insecurities and fears. Then came the day when everything changed and IT started innocently enough. A casual lunch break at work when I overheard two colleagues whispering in hushed tones at the next table. Their laughter caught my attention as they discussed someone's recent breakup, someone who had been dating a guy named Ethan. Can you believe it? Jenna found out her boyfriend was cheating on her. One of them exclaimed. That my heart dropped into my stomach as their words echoed in my mind like an alarm bell ringing loudly in an otherwise quiet room. Cheating? The word hung heavy in the air, twisting like a knife in my gut. My thoughts raced as I tried to piece together what this meant for us. What it meant for Ethan that I couldn't concentrate for the rest of the day. Every thought was consumed by worry for him and guilt over our situation. Had he crossed the line? Was he truly cheating on Jenna? Or was this just another rumor spiraling out of control? When I finally got home that evening, anxiety gnawed at me like a relentless predator stalking its prey. I needed answers. I needed to know where Ethan stood amidst this chaos. Hey, I texted him nervously. Can we talk? His response came almost immediately. Of course. Is everything okay? No, I replied honestly. I heard something today about you and Jenna. A few agonizing minutes passed before he replied. Can you come over? When I arrived at his house, Ethan was waiting for me at the door, his expression serious and guarded. He ushered me inside before closing the door behind us, an action that felt both protective and ominous. What did you hear? He asked, his voice steady but laced with tension. Just rumors about cheating, I said cautiously, watching his reaction closely to Ethan's face paled slightly. He ran a hand through his hair in frustration. It's not what you think, he said quickly. Jenna and I have been having problems for months now. She doesn't know about us yet, but it's not because I'm cheating. Relief washed over me momentarily, but was quickly replaced by confusion and frustration. Then why didn't you say anything? Why let me think? I didn't want to hurt you, he interrupted softly, stepping closer until there was barely any space between us. I didn't want to complicate things even more. But this is complicated, I exclaimed softly but urgently. We're hiding. We're lying. I know. His voice rose slightly before he took a deep breath to calm himself down. But what do you want me to do? Leave her right now? It's not that simple. The tension crackled between us like static electricity. Emotions swirled around us. Fear, frustration, longing. And each heartbeat echoed louder than the last. I just want honesty, I replied quietly, feeling tears prick at the corners of my eyes. I want to know where we stand. Ethan stepped back slightly as if my words had struck him hard. Guilt flashed across his face before he spoke again, his voice barely above a whisper. I care about you so much, but there are so many things to consider. The weight of his words hung heavily between us. It felt like an insurmountable wall separating two hearts yearning for connection, yet bound by circumstances beyond our control. I can't keep doing this if it means hurting someone else, I said finally, my voice trembling with emotion. Ethan looked pained as he stepped closer again. His hands found mine once more, a gesture filled with warmth and desperation that ignited hope within me despite everything else swirling around us. I don't want to lose you, he confessed earnestly. You mean too much to me. But what does that mean? I asked softly, searching his eyes for clarity amidst the chaos that he hesitated before speaking again. It means that I need time to figure out how to handle everything without hurting anyone involved. Tears slipped down my cheeks unbidden as emotions threatened to overwhelm me. The fear of losing him mingling with hope for what could be if only circumstances were different. I understand, I whispered through my tears, though deep down inside, I feared that time might only push us further apart rather than bring clarity or resolution. As we stood there together, hands intertwined amidst uncertainty, I knew one thing for certain. Whatever lay ahead would be fraught with challenges, but also filled with moments worth fighting for. If only we could find our way through this tangled web of emotions without losing ourselves along the way. The weeks that followed our intense conversation were a blur of uncertainty and introspection. Ethan and I continued to navigate the delicate balance of our relationship, but the weight of our situation hung heavily over us. I found myself oscillating between hope and despair, unsure of what the future held. Ethan took time to reflect on his feelings for Jenna, and I respected his need for space, even as it gnawed at me. Each day felt like a test of patience, filled with moments where I yearned to reach out, to bridge the gap between us. But I also recognized that this was a necessary part of his journey, a step toward clarity that would ultimately shape our connection. Point one evening, as I sat on my balcony watching the sunset paint the sky in brilliant hues of orange and pink, I felt a sense of calm wash over me. The world around me was beautiful, and I realized that I had been so focused on the chaos of my emotions that I had neglected to appreciate the present moment. I took a deep breath, allowing myself to embrace the uncertainty rather than fear. That was then that my phone buzzed with a message from Ethan. "Can we talk? I have something important to share." My heart raced as I read the words. This could be the moment of truth, the turning point we both needed. I quickly texted back, "Of course. When?" "Now," he replied almost instantly. I felt a rush of adrenaline as I made my way to his house, each step filled with anticipation and anxiety. When I arrived, Ethan was waiting at the door, his expression serious yet hopeful. "Hey," he said softly, pulling me into a warm embrace that felt like home. "Hey," I replied, feeling the tension in my chest begin to ease slightly. "What's going on?" He led me into the living room where we sat down together on the couch. The atmosphere felt charged with unspoken words as we faced each other, both knowing that this conversation could change everything. "I've been doing a lot of thinking," he began, his voice steady but tinged with emotion. "About us, about Jenna, about what it means to truly be happy." I nodded, holding my breath as he continued. "I care about Jenna. She's been an important part of my life. But what we have, it's different. It's real in a way that I can't ignore anymore." My heart raced at his words, hope blossoming within me like spring flowers breaking through winter's chill. "I've decided to talk to her," he said finally, his gaze unwavering. "I need to be honest with her about everything, about us and how I feel." The weight of his decision settled over us like a warm blanket. It was both terrifying and exhilarating. "Are you sure?" I asked cautiously, wanting to ensure he was prepared for whatever fallout might come. "I have to be," he replied earnestly. "I can't keep living in this gray area where nothing feels right. If there's any chance for us to explore what we have, it has to start with honesty." Tears prickled at the corners of my eyes as emotions swelled within me. Relief mingled with fear for what lay ahead. "I support you," I said softly, squeezing his hand tightly in mine. "No matter what happens." In that moment, it felt as if we were standing on the edge of a precipice, ready to leap into the unknown together. The following days were filled with tension as Ethan prepared for his conversation with Jenna. We spent time together still, each moment tinged with an urgency that made every laugh feel more precious, every touch more electric. Finally, one evening after what felt like an eternity, Ethan texted me, "It's done." My heart sank for an instant before hope surged again. I quickly replied, "How did it go?" "Can we talk?" he responded. When he arrived at my place later that night, his expression was unreadable, a mixture of relief and sadness etched across his features. "Tell me everything," I urged gently as we settled onto the couch together. "I told her everything," he said quietly. About how I feel." "It was hard." He paused, taking a deep breath before continuing. "She didn't take it well." My heart sank again at his words. Even though I had known this was a possibility, hearing it felt like a punch to the gut. But he added quickly, looking me in the eyes with determination, "She deserves to know the truth. And now that it's out there, now we can move forward without hiding." A wave of relief washed over me despite the sadness lingering in the air. Ethan's courage inspired me deeply. "You did the right thing," I said firmly, wrapping my arms around him in a comforting embrace that as we held each other close. A moment filled with warmth and understanding. I realized how much we had both grown throughout this journey. We had faced our fears head-on and chosen honesty over secrecy. No matter what challenges lay ahead, we were stronger together. In the days that followed, Ethan and Jenna navigated their own path toward closure, an emotional process filled with tears, but also growth for both of them. As painful as it was, they both knew it was necessary for healing. Meanwhile, Ethan and I began exploring our relationship openly, no longer shrouded in secrecy, but filled with possibility instead. Our connection deepened as we shared our dreams and fears without hesitation. Every moment spent together felt like stepping into sunlight after being trapped in shadows for too long. One evening, while walking through a local park under twinkling fairy lights strung across trees, a romantic setting perfect for new beginnings, I paused to look at him under the soft glow of light filtering through leaves above us. "Thank you for being brave," I said softly, my heart swelling with gratitude and love. Ethan smiled warmly back at me. There was something undeniably beautiful about this moment, a shared understanding that no matter what lay ahead, we would face it together. That as we stood there beneath those stars, two souls intertwined by love and vulnerability, I knew that this journey had changed us both forever. We had learned not only about love, but also about ourselves, about courage and acceptance, and most importantly, that happiness is worth fighting for, even if it means navigating through difficult times along the way. That I in that moment beneath the stars, surrounded by laughter echoing from nearby couples enjoying their own moments, I felt an overwhelming sense of hope wash over me. Love is not always easy or straightforward, but when it is true, it shines brighter than any star, illuminating even the darkest nights.